So I'm heading with my son and daughter just for a little bit of a venture. We're just going down through the local drains and having a look at what sort of wild edibles and what sort of plants, you know, grow literally along the side of drains or in your backyard. I think you guys will be pretty amazed what we find. So stay tuned and show you guys what we find. So look at this, we've already come across some of something that's very useful. This is called cattail, and many of you will probably know what this is. You know, it's pretty common, grows in wet areas. But look at that for tinder. That is perfect. That'll take a spark like you wouldn't believe. It's also an edible. So on the younger ones, these ones are a bit old and a bit further along in season. They actually look like this before they open out and fluff up. The stems, the young stems right down through the center along the bottom are absolutely edible, and that's something that could save your life in a survival situation. So also you can get fire from it. I'm actually going to take some of this and save it for later. Let's move on. Here we go. Woo! Yeehaw! Oh mate, it's bloody tight down here.
There we go.
I'm too bloody big for this shit. How you going, son?
Good. Jeez, I feel like I'm gonna die.
Jesus Christ. It's a mission. Bit tough on the old knees. These kids just go through like not a problem in the world. Woo! Alright. So this one here, it's a tree just hanging over a fence. Does anyone know what it is? You can see by these nuts that grow on it what it is. Cypress tree. I think the leaves can be boiled and it's actually good for arthritis, but I'm not too sure, not 100% sure on that one, so don't quote me. But I do know cypress wood was used for fence palings and things like that in the past before pine was widely used. Let's keep going along, see what else we can find. So I've got something very interesting here. Now that tree we just found down there was a cypress. This tree here, if you look at it, looks identical. You can even see the little nuts that grow on it, the leaves. The leaves are a little bit, the actual cypress had a little bit of a lighter color on the outside, but this one is not a cypress. It's actually a false cypress, and it's a cedar tree. So you see with nature, there is always an evil cousin or an evil twin to every tree. So you've got to be very careful with how you identify things. Yeah, so that's a great example of that. Let's see what we've got. This here to me looks like a curly dock and actually has a bit of a lemony taste. It is edible, but only at certain times in its development. And the best part of this plant to eat is young juvenile leaves before they actually flower. There's none here. Yeah, interesting. Let's see what else we got. This one here is an interesting one. It's an invasive species, and it's actually a species of grass. It's called rose fountain grass, and it doesn't have many uses. It's not edible or anything like that. But one good use that it does have when it's like this is fire starting abilities again. Really, really good tinder. Take a spark, no problem. Invasive species, but it's found in many, many places, especially near waterways like where we are today. Let's see what else we got. Ooh, look at this one here. This one's an interesting one because it's got little berries on it. Some people may go, very good, let's have a feast. Now, this looks like black nightshade to me, however, which is edible. Black nightshade is edible. but there is a species that looks very similar to this called deadly nightshade, and I guess you don't need to explain what that means. It's deadly. So if I came across this plant and I just wasn't 100% sure, I would likely leave it alone and move on. Actually, I've spotted something here. This plant, you see the leaves on it. You can see the actual beans that grow on this plant. That might look quite appetizing. It's called a castor bean tree. And even the name of this plant may sound like it's edible. In fact, it's highly toxic, highly toxic and highly deadly. Stay well away from this guy. Right, this here is called a sword fern, and most ferns are edible. This specific species, if you pull it out and at the roots it has bulbs, they are what's edible. Let's have a look. There we go. See these? Edible. Collect some of these ones for later. Let's move along. Now I've come across these beautiful, majestic pine trees. These things are absolutely beautiful, and it could be a Norfolk pine, but my thought process around this is it's probably a hoot pine. Now look at them, oh, just amazing. Now they have a very similar bark texture to a birch tree, and you look at this, look at that, like that here. This would be very good for fire starting. Also, the sap in these trees is extremely good for fire starting. It would take a spark quite well along with the bark. Like I said, very similar to a birch tree that people use out in the States. The sap, although like a lot of people like to use pine sap for torches, making torches that you can carry through the wilderness for light. However, the sap out of these, once burning, it sort of goes pretty runny pretty quick, so I wouldn't suggest using it for that. But this tree has almost everything you need to start a fire. Get some of this bark, some of the sap, look for some sap bundles on them, and you've got yourself the makings of a fire. A fire steel would take a really good spark from this. Alright, let's move along. Okay, I've got something interesting over here. You see that there? It's a it's in the aloe vera family, and they call it the octopus plant. Now, it is a very special tree. It can be used for everything that standard aloe vera is used for, like sunburn, on wounds, even constipation, believe it or not. It also grows a beautiful red flower, and when that flower is young and fresh, it can be ground up and has a beautiful sweet sugary honey taste. So I'm actually going to take some of this home. It does grow quite big. It's not like a regular aloe vera plant that you see in a little pot. This thing can grow, I think, up to about 1.52 meters tall. Yeah, very good handy plant to have around the house. And you can see the way that the leaves sort of branch out like they're octopus tentacles, and that's where it gets its nickname from, the octopus plant. Oh, I'm going to actually cut some of this out and take it home and replant it. Ah, here's an interesting one. This one here, it's a fern, and it's called foxtail fern. Just, I think they call it that because of the way that the branches stem out and puff out like a foxtail. Now, it it is actually a close relative of asparagus, you know, common garden asparagus, but it's not edible. People see these things that grow on it, these little berries, and they mistake them to be edible. Don't eat it. Here we've got a common lantana plant, an invasive species that strangles the hell out of the bush, and it's an odd one, because I've heard, you know, from different places that when the flower on this plant, the berry, sorry, is super ripe, apparently it's edible. However, when it's still green, it's highly toxic. So it would be my suggestion to stay right away from eating anything off the lantana plant, just to be sure, you know, you never know, because it's people have mixed ideas about this plant and its edibility. We do know that it's invasive though, and look at it all the way through here. It's just strangling everything along this bank. Here we go. It looks like a western bracken fern, or it could be a common bracken fern. Majority of ferns have edible parts, but in saying that, if this is a western bracken fern, the leaves can be edible when they're in juvenile stages. However, they can be mildly poisonous when they're a bit further along in their life. So again, you know, in a survival situation, you find juvenile leaves of a bracken fern, it's likely edible. I wouldn't eat it if I didn't have to, though. Alright, let's go, guys. Ooh, look at this beautiful, beautiful native species. This one here, guys, is called the crimson bottlebrush. It's only a little baby. Doesn't have any flowers yet. It has this sort of like beautiful red flower that comes out of it, and there's the flower actually provides a nice sweet nectar. Now you can just suck the nectar out of those flowers, or you can put them in a tea. You can actually steep these leaves in a tea as well and drink it. The way to tell, you know, it has these long, narrow, thin leaves, but it also has a fur over it. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. A beautiful fur, and they just feel nice. Beautiful native species. Great to see that here. Hope this guy grows big and tough. Let's move along. Look at this. This here is the vine of a sweet potato plant. Believe it or not, we all know what they are, and we all know they're edible. Looks like it's coming out from under somebody's fence there. Here's something you might not know though. These are from a family of species known as morning glory. How's that one for you? Have a bit of sweet potato with your morning glory. Let's move on. So we're on our way back home. That was a bloody adventure. You know, we walked down to this big drain. Did you have fun, guys?
Yep.
Yeah? You learn anything?
Yep.
About what, son?
Plants.
About plants and edibles, eh?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's actually quite amazing, you know. You walk down this dirty canal with backyards, look at these beautiful creatures up there. And you can find food. If you know what you're looking for, you can find food. You can also find deadly plants too. So I just can't stress enough, guys, if you don't know exactly what you're looking at, don't eat it. You know, likely don't even touch it, because there's some things out here that you can get on your fingers, put your fingers near your mouth, just like coronavirus, and be in big shit, alright? So even these things, look at these. I don't know if you guys can see that. Castor beans. They look beautiful, absolutely beautiful. castor oil actually comes from that shit, and it's poisonous as crap. Don't go near it. That's why I don't eat castor oil either. Alright guys, I'm going to head off, just have some fun with the kids here. Say goodbye, kids.
Bye.
Take it easy till next time.